maybe one day when I look back, I'll go, oh yes, I was a businesswoman. But when you do something, you don't necessarily think of it like that at the time. I feel like Kollo is a very exciting business that I do with my husband and my friend Tash. So I never really call myself a businesswoman because I see them as the business minds as well.
Hello and welcome to Run the Business, the weekly podcast that explores the place where running and leadership come together. We'll find out how running can help us with leading, managing people, and generally being better in business. We'll also try and answer that question, do runners make better leaders? I'm Anthony Gay, and today, I'll be honest, I'm not sure where to start introducing this week's guest. She's a TV and radio presenter, and you can hear her on Smooth Radio Breakfast in the UK every weekday morning. She's also the host of one of my favourite running podcasts, RunPod. She's a huge running ambassador and runs the London Marathon most years, often raising a lot of money for charity as well. In the last few years, she's also co-founded her own business, Kollo, which is a collagen and vitamin supplement created in the UK. Jenni Falconer, welcome to Run the Business.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Jenni. When you meet people and they're from a different planet maybe, and they ask you what you do, what do you say? Where do you start?
Well, it's funny because now different people know, lots of people don't know me, but lots of people know me for different things. So for instance, people of my age might know me as a telly presenter or a radio presenter. Younger generations might know me more for RunPod, which is a podcast I created. Or then again, there's a whole new market that's kind of aware of me a little bit because of Kollo. A lot of people don't even know that I'm involved with Kollo, which is the collagen supplement. And so they're surprised when they hear I am. So yeah, I can describe myself in many different ways depending on who I'm with.
And you mentioned RunPod. Thank you for bringing us RunPod. I know it inspires and encourages so many people to get out there and run. And forgive me if some of the questions in this bit are ones that you ask on RunPod as well. But when did you last go running? Because I know you've been through, you're working through an injury at the moment, so you're missing getting out there, aren't you?
Oh my goodness, Anne, it's so annoying. Well, I love running. I just love it, love it, love it, love it. It's kind of what defines me as a person, so to speak. So I run to feel good. I run to stay awake and stay alert, to refresh, to re-energize. I run so I can eat cake. I just running makes me feel like me. And so at the moment I can't run, so you can imagine it's really annoying. And I was training for London Marathon and unfortunately got a little injured. I was up to like the 17-mile runs, and then I just got an injury and something happened. I've torn my IT band, which apparently is quite an achievement in itself because it's something that's not a common injury, tearing your IT band, which is like a band of steel is effectively. So anyway, I haven't been able to run at all. And I'm hoping that I will be able to start running in time for the next London Marathon since I've deferred my entry. But the last few weeks have been really frustrating, especially when you are injured. You just see everyone running.
Yeah.
You just see everyone running with smiles on their faces. They might not be, but in your head they are. And so I'm just insanely jealous. I've got major FOMO at the moment. But one of the good things about having a podcast about running and working in the running realm, I suppose, is that I'm still very much involved. I don't have to feel as cut off as I would because I still talk about running pretty much on a daily basis. I interview amazing runners. I interview people who have a passion for running. And also I've been standing at start lines and finishing lines, hosting stuff about running. So for me, actually, I feel like although I can't do it, I'm still getting my runner's fix, just in a different way.
In that environment, because it's such a community spirit, isn't it? It's such a great vibe around running events and people who run. There's a great camaraderie, isn't there?
Yeah, do you know, that's it. I've made so many friends through running as well. And actually I feel like I'm kind of missing out. So when I go and work in the running field, it's great because I still keep in touch with everyone I've met. And in fact, for me, I've made more friends through running, I think, in recent years than anything else. It's just brilliant. And I think that's what's brilliant about any kind of sport, and any kind of sport you have a passion for. It doesn't matter how good you are. You might be the slowest person running at park run, but you're still in the community and you're still very much welcomed, and you still all go for a coffee and cake afterwards. So the fact is, by being there and by motivating yourself to get up and go and join the pack, you become part of it. And I think that's what's really important, actually. And you talk about how business, do runners make good leaders? And I think actually there is an element of truth in that, because we have focus, we're motivated by running. You can be more creative. I came up with RunPod whilst going for a run, because I was on a run and I was like, I really wish there was something I could listen to. I really wish there was something that encouraged me to keep going. And so I developed RunPod, and RunPod's actually now becoming more of a business in itself as well. It's pretty much a full-time job for me, and it's expanding into other fields as well. So that's all come from running, being creative, feeling focused, having the drive to create something that is about my passion. Also because you know what the expectations are of your listeners, who are the community around you. And so I think it's just recognizing what people want as well. And I just love running, basically.
So and firstly, good luck with the recovery, and I hope you are back running soon. So fingers crossed for that.
Thank you.
When you did your first marathon back in 2009, did you think it would become this thing in your life that it has turned into?
Well, do you know, it already was a thing in my life, actually. So the marathon came 10 years into my running journey. So I started running way earlier, kind of mid-90s. I was working in Scotland. I started presenting, and I was working in Scotland, and I was just, I was loving life. I was a student, going home, drinking snake bites and black with my friends. Then I was going on the road, filming telly in Scotland, eating liquors, all sorts, all the way. And I just started piling on the pounds. And I thought, well, I've always done sport, but now that I am working and full-time uni degree, I'm actually neglecting the exercise, which is so unlike me. And so I put on a few pounds, and I decided I had to do something just to stay in shape, not to diet, but just to get back into feeling fit again and healthy, and getting the colour back in my cheeks, because that's one of the greatest things about running. By doing it, you look healthy, you feel good, you feel alive. So I just started running, and the aim simply was to run around Glasgow's Botanic Gardens without stopping. Took me a while to get there, wearing totally horrific men's jogging bottoms and dodgy trainers, and having a discman out running with me because I didn't have, to listen to. And so I started like that, and then it got to, okay, let's see if I can run for half an hour without stopping. And then I kind of went, okay, let's see if I can add a wee bit. And I'd go on the road filming, and I'd always take my trainers, and it got to the point where I'd get up before work, which is another thing I wouldn't have done. I'd get up before work to go for a half-hour run. Then the cameraman started coming running with me, or director, because people started realizing, oh, she really enjoys getting up. Let's go and see what the buzz is. And then we started having a little group that would go out running before we started filming. And actually, over the years, whenever I have been filming television shows, I've always taken my trainers and gone for a run early in the morning before filming, because I feel like it sets me up for the day. But that kind of just ended up, the runs got longer. And then it just became something I did for fun. And I started working at GMTV years ago, and I would go for like a 15-mile run for no reason afterwards. And sometimes it's a case of going for a run and just saying, I'll just go down the road. And then you get down the road and you go left instead of right. And then so instead of going home, you're adding something on. And those running journeys are amazing, because you don't have a plan. You just going to run until you want to stop, until you get home again. And so that's it. So I've been running for a long time before the marathon came. I just never committed to a marathon because I was scared that I would fail at it.
And you mentioned there, the first reason you went out running was from probably a health benefit, and then it kind of, the reason changed over the years. What do you run for now? What do you get out of it when you get out running today?
For me, I just need to run. It's to clear my mind, to reset. I worked for 8 years on heart radio. And I was getting up at 2 every morning, and I was on air at 4, and I was finishing at 6:30. And it's like, it's kind of night shift kind of hours.
Yeah.
And when you finish, you feel shattered. And the only way I got through 8 years of doing that, kind of, 5 days a week, and then the 6th day I was getting up for 6 a.m. on the radio. So the only way I got through those 8 years was by running. So I'd come off air, and while my peers on the other radio stations, they would all go home and have a nap.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not doing that because it makes me feel worse. I'm going to go for a run. And I would run home, and I would run somewhere. I'd train for the marathon. I'd do whatever. I'd start my run at 6:30 or maybe 7, because I'd allow myself a cup of tea.
Yeah.
So I would then go for a run, and running, it re-energized me, and it made me feel good, and it really helped me focus on everything else I needed to do. And I had a busy day the other end of the day. So by running, I re-energized. And so for me, I run to clear my head, to de-stress, and to re-energize and reset, really, to take on the rest of the day.
Makes total sense. And do you still have objectives? Obviously, marathon is something you could time and you can have I want to aim to do this, but just when you're out running, do you kind of, do you set yourself objectives in terms of what you want to get out of each run or targets that you want to achieve? How do you measure success in running?
Do you know, I should really do that more. So when I'm training for an event like a marathon or a half marathon, that's when I really set myself a program. I try and push myself. I try and stick to a schedule, and I try and have some kind of, formal plan to my running. The rest of the year, I purely run for fun, and it's almost the most joyous part.
Yeah.
So I get a huge enjoyment and satisfaction out of training for an event, having the challenge, finding, some weeks are hard, some weeks are easier, some weeks you don't know what you're doing, and then other weeks you're just embracing the fact that you're having to exert yourself a little bit more week on week. But then in those off months, which, let's be honest, is the majority of the year, I just like running. I like running because it's a sunny day and I'm going to go outside and enjoy the sunshine and run. I like running on holiday because it's the best way for me to start the day. Get up, go for a run, then I'll go back and have a lovely breakfast and sit by the pool all day, and I'll feel like I've justified it. So for me, the rest of the year, running is just for pleasure. Now, I might go and do a 20K run. I might do a fast 5K. Sometimes I'll set myself mini challenges, right? Let's see if I can get what the fastest 5K I can do is, and I'll do it on the treadmill so I can really control it. It just depends on what I feel like on a week-to-week basis. But I love the fact that when you're not training for a race, there's no pressure on you to commit to a competition or to commit to a challenge. You can just run for fun, and that's really nice.
You mentioned RunPod and how it's sort of developing and growing. Who's been your favorite guest that you've had on over the years?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I mean, I've got like Ant Middleton and Chris Hoy and John Terry. So they're all athletes or sportsmen or, former military. They're all fully focused, and it's really interesting to see what their mindset is when it comes to running and the discipline they have and the competitive side as well. But then Eliud Kipchoge, who is obviously the GOAT of the running world, he was amazing to talk to because everything that came out of his mouth was hugely inspiring and sounded like a quote from a movie. So he was great to chat to. But then, there's stories like Helen Thorne, who is one part of the Scummy Mummies, and how she's completely transformed her life through running, and not only, radically changed her health because she's, taken up running more seriously and maybe looking after her health a little bit more, but also, she's gone through a divorce and she's changed her life, and she's openly sharing how running has been the thread that's got her through it all and made her stronger. So many people have different running stories. Actually, I just love them all.
I think RunPod for me I love it because of all that, that breadth of conversation that you have with all these different people from all different walks of life. So again, thank you for bringing that.
Oh, thank you.
This podcast is about how running can help us in business. And I want to talk a little bit about Kollo and kind of how that came about. And, firstly, do you consider yourself, you mentioned the list of things that you do at the beginning. Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur in doing this, a businesswoman? I mean, how does it land for you?
Do you know, maybe one day when I look back, I'll go, oh, yes, I was a businesswoman. But, when you do something, you don't necessarily think of it like that at the time. I feel like Kollo is a very exciting business that I do with my husband and my friend Tash. So the three of us are working together. So I just feel like it's a really amazing business that we do. So I never really call myself a businesswoman because I see them as the business minds as well, because we all have our own roles. But Kollo came about because I always took collagen as a supplement to supplement my running, basically, to support my running. And I used to just bore them to death, Tash and James, who work together anyway. I just used to bore them with the pros and cons of taking a collagen supplement, because they used to work for a while out the kitchen, and I'd always come in for my run and then start, getting all my post-run products out. And anyway, they were just like, oh my goodness, every day you're telling us this, why don't you do your own? And that literally was how it started. And so it's developed ever since. And we launched in April 2020, and we'd been working on it for about a year, actually, really kind of like getting our manufacturers, getting our collagen, just making sure everything had really great clinical studies. And we wanted to make sure that we provided a supplement that was not only one we were proud of, but was also the best out there. And so we didn't really rush the release of it. We also wanted to make sure that if you're going to take a supplement, it was really important that you enjoy it and that we're not selling a product to people that was going to be revolting and didn't work. It had to actually authentically, genuinely be something that worked, that tasted good, that people look forward to taking, and that had all the proven results. So we worked hard, and then bloomin' typical that COVID came along. We were like, oh no, how can we launch a product? How can we launch a new business just as we've gone into lockdown? But we had to kind of persevere, because obviously if you're launching a supplement, every product has a sell by date. And
yeah.
If we were going to launch later, then the product would have had less of a sell by date. So we launched it, and it was amazing. The reaction, the feedback, it was just so good. We're really proud that we have launched a supplement, a sports supplement and a health and beauty supplement into the market, and it has been well received by both men and women. We've really listened to our customers, which I think is one of the most important things you can do when launching a business, because you might have an idea, but you have to be flexible if your customers want to maybe, change something a little. So initially we started with 7 grams of collagen in every sachet, and we were like, okay, we're gonna increase this. We did lots of clinical studies based on 10 grams, and we increased the amount to 10 grams so that we were absolutely abiding by what the clinical studies said. And we're giving you the maximum amount of collagen you could have in every sachet, which is more than many of the liquid collagen sachets out there. We also worked on the taste, which was already amazing. We just made sure that it is still the same fantastic tropical taste. We also made it Informed Sport approved, so that pro athletes, we have lots of rugby stars, footballers, we have athletes and Olympians, golfers. We have so many different sports that take our collagen supplement, and it's recommended by physios for people wanting a speedier recovery. What's more, we also took on board that people wanted something that was more sustainable. So we worked on the packaging, and we made it 30% less plastic and recyclable. So yeah, we're really proud of the product we've developed. We've got a very exciting time ahead. We've been growing and growing, and between the three of us, we've expanded. So it started as a job that operated out of our house. We then moved to an office. We had our warehouse. We have our factory. We now have a huge office distribution center. We have a number of staff now. We have, some absolutely brilliant staff members who, by the way, are absolutely key to Kollo's strength and success. And we are going from strength to strength with more products coming next year. And it's a really exciting time.
It sounds like an amazing journey, and congratulations on the success of Kollo. We'll put the details in the show notes.
Thank you.
In terms of the business side, because this podcast is about sort of where running and business come together. Were there any lessons that you kind of learned as you've gone through that you can share? Things that you kind of you worked out on the journey?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, so many. Well, it's really difficult when you're launching a new business as well to. I suppose anyone in this situation knows, when you're launching a new product, you have 100% confidence that you are launching something that everyone would want and would need. And that's absolutely what our collagen supplement is. And if you're listening and you're like, what the hell is collagen? So we all have collagen in our bodies, but from the age of 25, it starts depleting, which is why you get the wrinkles and the aching joints and thinner skin, and hair maybe becomes a little bit less thick and bouncy and shiny, and your nails start getting a bit manky. But basically the collagen replenishes that. By putting the collagen back in, it replenishes all that, and your nails will get stronger, your hair will get thicker, your joints will ache less, and your cartilage will be improved, your bones will be better, your immune system's good, your skin will be glowing, and the wrinkles might be ironed out a little. So there's a whole manner of reasons why you should take a collagen supplement. But when you launch something like that, you anticipate how many people will buy into it. And so you make enough product to kind of satisfy the demand. But obviously you're starting a new business, and the funding is limited, and you don't know what return you're going to get.
Yep.
And so we were kind of, we didn't want to overproduce, but then again, we didn't want to not have enough if indeed demand was high, and demand was high. So we had enough collagen, but we then had to replenish the supplies in order to satisfy not just the existing customers that we ended up getting, but also a very quick growing market. And so there was a stage where we were like, oh my God, it's selling out too quickly. We've got to rein in all the advertising, hold back on the marketing, all the social media stuff had to die down. And we were like, oh my goodness, are we going to even be able to have enough? So we were just like really not wanting anyone to buy it. And actually there was one stage where we had to actually have it as sold out. More will be with you soon. And that's something that you could only you wouldn't be able to predict because we hadn't ever launched this product on the market before.
Right.
So obviously since then we've made sure that never happens again. But these are things I think you have to just take a deep breath and go, okay, so this has happened, let's just deal with it. And for us, the most important thing is customer relations. And I think with any business, I'm sure you'll agree, if you have a crap customer service team, you're not going to get any repeat business anyway.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure your customers are your priority. And if they want something resolved, you resolve it immediately and you resolve it well. And our girls who deal with the customer service now, who deal with it full time, are amazing. And we are so proud that they are part of the Kollo team because we have all worked together for so long to make sure it's the best it can be and it will keep on getting better. But without that customer service team, we certainly wouldn't be where we are.
Mm-hmm. Makes total sense. And obviously Kollo's not just for runners, it goes beyond runners.
Oh, yeah.
But in terms of, your running experience, did running help in any way, in getting your head into the place for, to do the work that Kollo needed when you launched it? I mean, where did running fit in the sort of business process?
Well, I mean, for me, I've always sold it as the product I need for my running. So, the reason it's formed in the first place was because it's something that can really benefit runners. I mean, it benefits everyone in different ways. Women going through the menopause think it's amazing. Anyone with a skin issue, whether it's rosacea or eczema, they're giving us the feedback that it's helping them. Men are loving it for, recovery after exercise just as much as women. There's so many different people, but the running in particular, it's so good for your joints. And so for me, when I go out running, because that's when, as I said, when I'm most creative, I come back in and I can think of ideas that can contribute and help alongside, especially on the social media side of things, because we're always all businesses now really grow on social media more than anything because, everyone is actively on their phones, on their smartphones, scrolling, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. And so you're always trying to think of great content you can put on there. So yeah, so running kind of helps from that point of view in terms of when I go out, I can be more creative. But generally, because it's for runners, I don't know, you always go out. I would never come back from a run and not take my Kollo.
Mm-hmm. And is it, because we get, listeners around the world, is it available elsewhere or is it just UK at the moment?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
No, it's available internationally. We've got quite a big market actually in Europe. We have a lot of customers in America. We are launching in America in the very near future. We have everything set up and in place to launch there. We're just working on a couple of little things which will be announced in the new year, and then we will be going to America with distribution center there, which is hugely exciting because it's been on the cards for quite a while now. We've just had a couple of setbacks with something, but it will all be announced in the new year, so it's very exciting.
Fantastic. Is it? How do you feel as somebody who is able to combine the things in life that you love into your work? How does that sort of balance for you? Because it's a privilege, isn't it, when you can kind of do stuff that you love and call it work?
I know, I think that's it. Do you know, I think, Anne, as you get older, you want to work on stuff that you're interested in, that you have a passion for. And I'm in a lucky position where I guess I can do that. I fell into presenting, I guess, when I was 18 years old. I would have loved to have done it, but never really thought it possible. And I really worked hard to make that, to find opportunities and to get myself in front of the right people to get the jobs. And it worked. And I think you have to be proactive in chasing what you want to do. And so likewise, for me, creating RunPod, that really was the first kind of business I did myself. And I feel that I really wanted that so much that I went out of my way to create it. It's not made me a millionaire, let me tell you, but it's something that I'm really proud of, and I work very hard on it. And then likewise with Kollo, it's something that we really wanted, and so we made happen. There's plenty of things I've wanted over the years, but I've had no idea on how to make it happen or how to start something. And it's just been easier to sit back and go, oh, one day. But actually now that one day is here, and before it's too late, I want to take advantage of any chance that we have to make something happen. And if it fails, so what? We've tried it. The only downside is, obviously, especially now at this time, no one wants to take big risks financially. But if you have an opportunity to make something work and make something happen, then you should try it. And especially if it only is going to take your time, if that's your biggest expense, losing time, then there's not really any reason. You just have to make the time.
That's great advice, really is. Can you tell us about a run that you've done at some point over the years that sticks in your mind, a special run that has good thoughts for you and good vibes that you can recall and think, oh, I loved it when I did that?
Oh, there's so many. Do you know what? There's a few. I absolutely love running by the coast. I live in London. I don't have sea anywhere near me. However, when I run by the seaside, I feel so happy. And in the summer, we quite often go down to the south of Spain, and there's a trek, there's a run that goes from Puerto Banús to Marbella. It's quite a long trek, and it's just amazing. And when I run there, I'm on holiday, so work's not interfering. I don't have to do emails. I don't have any commitments for the day. I think the biggest commitment might be, where are we going to hang out? Are we going to hang out by the pool? Are we going to go to the beach? Are we going to play golf? That's like my biggest commitment on the day. Where are we going to go for dinner? So when I go on holiday and I run along that stretch, oh my goodness, it feels so, so good. I was actually marathon training in Spain this year, and I went for a 17-mile run.
Yeah.
I went at 6:30 in the morning. I watched the sunrise, went up to, by the time I got back, it was 32 degrees. I have never felt happier. I was knackered. I was very sweaty. I'd had to stop twice to refill my bloomin' hydration pack. But I just loved every minute. I was in a place I like. I had the most spectacular views. There weren't many people around. The sunrise was phenomenal. And I knew that then I was going to spend the day with my family and have just an amazing day. I didn't have to do anything. I could just rest and just put my feet up. I just loved it. Just love it.
Sounds like a perfect day. And I agree, those early morning runs where you see the sun coming up and you put it in early, you then earn the rest of the day, don't you? It feels like you've really, you can enjoy it.
When I used to start my show at 2:30 or get up at 2 to start my show at 4, I'd finish at 6:30, and loads of people were like, oh, does it not feel like you're just up too early? And I would be finishing in the winter months, finishing work before sunrise. So I would run home to sunrise, and it's just a joy. I mean, I finish work at 10 a.m. now, so there's no way I get to see the sunrise when I'm running, but it's a really special treat. And if you have not run as the sun is rising, then you have to do it at least once. You have to, because you're missing out on a very special time of day, and it feels a privilege to see it sometimes.
And what about the sun setting? Have you ever done any where you've worked?
I know, not as good in the evening.
No.
But the times I have done it, it is gorgeous. I just, by the evening, I've usually done a million things, haven't had time. And there are occasions when I do run in the evening, and it is gorgeous. I'm not going to deny it. It's just I've got more experience running in the morning. I'm definitely more of a morning person.
Oh, I'm with you on that. I was lucky to, I was up in the Lake District the other weekend and was up on top of one of the hills as the sun was going down. It's a rare experience for me, but it was magical just to see it sort of disappear behind the mountains.
Oh, nice.
So running aside, can you name a business tool, maybe an app or an inspirational person, something that you couldn't do without or has influenced the business side of what you do? Kollo or any of the other endeavors that you've been part of?
Well, I'm trying to think of, I mean, there are brands that I look at and I think, well, that is a really great brand, and I kind of feel quite inspired by things like Huel. I mean, look what they've done, a health product that's become a huge, huge, huge thing. It's multi-million-dollar business. And so I look at things like that and see them as amazing role models as opposed to an individual, I guess, because all these brands, they come out of nowhere. Sometimes it's just someone starting something in their kitchen or whatever, and then it becomes and grows and becomes the big thing that they would have always dreamt it. Some of them pass by the wayside. But so I think when we look at what we've got with a supplement, we look at products like that and just think, wow, that's kind of they've set the bar, really, haven't they? And it's about trying to kind of get up to that level. And it would be the dream to do something like that and have a brand that is as successful and is diverse with multiple products. And so I think that's kind of what you do. You always have to be looking to the future and wondering how you can develop and expand and satisfy your customers. You must never forget that you have to keep the ones that you've got happy. And so with anything you do beyond that, you have to really think, well, as long as our initial customers are still totally happy with what they're getting, we can expand on everything else. So yeah, I think that's it. We're just always growing. And so any of those companies or brands that have an ambition and want to grow and develop. I mean, for God's sake, look at blooming Jeff Bezos, who just started off with a little company and it's become huge and he's now branched out and doing everything else. So you kind of have to admire anyone who's just persevered and turned something little into this huge empire.
Mm-hmm. And that's where Kollo's going by the sounds of things, from what you say.
Well, it'd be nice. It'd be nice if it was a bit like Amazon. That'd be good.
And sort of business aside, what's your favourite bit of running kit? I know you asked this a lot on RunPod. Your favourite bit of running kit or accessory, some running thing you couldn't do without?
Well, see, obviously trainers are key, but I've got quite into, I'm getting more and more into my tech. So I have, over the years, I've had everything. I've had the Fitbits, I've had the Apple Watches, I've had the Polars, I've had everything. I'm really liking my Garmin at the moment. And I've got to say, I wouldn't go out for a run without it. And it's not necessarily because I'm wanting to chase the time or because I'm wanting to check out my, my heart rate or VO2 max or anything like that. It's just because I find it like a comfort blanket, seeing at the end what I've done, what time I've done. I haven't pushed it. I haven't looked down while I'm running. But when I get back, I kind of quite like to see how I did and how I performed and then compare it to the times I really am pushing myself. So now I've got to this stage where I feel lost if I don't go out with that bit of tech on my arm. Do you do the same?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Garmin person as well, and the latest update has, it blows my mind in terms of all the stats that you can get. And I think one of the challenges for us is working out what the important stuff is, isn't it? Because you can see all the numbers and see all everything going on and go, well, what's it mean? How do I interpret it? And it's kind of, it's great to have it all, but it's kind of like, identifying which of the bits that you need to focus on is important, isn't it?
Well, this is it. Sometimes it's overcomplicated. And if you do all those sports, oh my God, you're getting value for money with those Garmins. But I think that very few people are doing every single sport that's available to them on the Garmin tracker. So, but I use it for running. I use it for walking. I use it for going to the gym. But also I love golf. And so when I play golf, it's amazing for that as well.
It's also great. I don't know if you know that I've got an Epix and it's got a little sort of
that's why I was looking at that yesterday. Oh my God, it looks so good.
It's good. And if you have to get up in the middle of the night, it's got a torch on it as well, which you kind of...
Oh no, I've seen that.
It's quite handy.
I played with it for about 10 minutes yesterday and I was putting it on my wrist next to... I've got a Phoenix 6 and I was like... It is significantly bigger, I will say that, but it looks so nice.
It is good. It is good. Final question. What advice would you give to anybody in business, in a leadership role, who's thinking of taking up running and being more active? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say it's a great thing to do because I think firstly, it kind of normalizes situations. So if you're feeling stressed or het up or you're having some massive crisis at work and you just need to step away and get a breather and put things in perspective, going for a run absolutely gives you that. It can be a 10-minute run on a treadmill. It can be a half-hour run. It can be 2 hours if you really have the time. But whatever, when you come back, it's almost like the weight has lifted off your shoulders. You can see clearly. And I also think it's really good if you're frustrated with something happening and then you can take the time out and come back and then reapproach that situation. So before you send that angry email, go for a run, chill out, come back, and you'll probably send a much gentler one. That's all I'm saying. I think it's a great tool to help control your concerns and your stress levels.
Jenni, it's been awesome talking to you. Thank you so much for telling us all about where Kollo's at and where it's going, and RunPod and all sorts of other stuff as well. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again to Jenni Falconer for being this week's guest on Run the Business. Don't you just love Jenni's energy and enthusiasm that she pours into absolutely everything that she does? It comes through in RunPod, on her Smooth Radio breakfast show, and when she's talking about Kollo Health as well. There's definitely a common thread starting to come through in the podcast, in the reasons that people run. Jenni talked about it clearing her mind, de-stressing, re-energizing, and resetting to take on the day. And I think these days it's really important if you have a disjointed day. Maybe you're working strange hours, you've got stuff to do in the morning or late at night. Running is this thing that helps give you some space in between these different sections and come to each part of the day with the right attitude and the right mindset. I love how Jenni talked about also running being something that gives a space for creativity and specifically coming up with ideas for social media. I think doing some deeper investigation into how running affects creativity and the different sides of the brain will be something that we should do on a future episode of this podcast. Andy Badley talked a little bit about that in the previous episode. And if you're an expert in this space and want to talk about it, then please drop me a line. I can hear a whole episode on that on its own. From a business perspective, I enjoyed listening to Jenni talk about looking after your core audience, loyal customers. They're the ones that have helped you get to where you are. It feels even more important these days to look after those close to you. I don't know if you remember, but a few years back, there was a story about how insurance companies were penalizing loyalty at the expense of new business. Customers that had been around for years were paying more than people coming in new to the business. It's a short-term gain. Is it worth it in the long run? It probably isn't. And on that note, I want to finish with a quote I saw on Twitter the other day, which really resonated with me. It was from Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. He's the guy that does the amazing Feel Better, Live More podcast. And he credited it to Catherine M. Wallace. And it just made me stop and think about the importance of listening. Listen earnestly to anything your children want to tell you, no matter what. If you don't listen eagerly to the little stuff, when they're little, they won't tell you the big stuff when they're big, because to them, all of it has always been big stuff. I'm Anthony Gay, and until next time, keep running and keep chasing your goals.